The stars burned bright over planet Kirel. Its sky was always red, filled with fire and storms. But high above the clouds floated the Silver Palace, a great city in the sky, home of the Varnari Empress and her daughter, Princess Rila. Rila was not like ordinary girls. She was born to rule, trained from the day she could speak. Tutors taught her about war, strategy, law, and diplomacy. She learned how to win battles with both weapons and words. Her voice was firm, her steps confident, and her eyes sharp like crystal. People bowed as she passed. Officers saluted. She was the future empress of the Varnari Empire, a force that ruled 1,000 worlds. But even with all this power, something inside Rila was empty. Every day felt like a performance. She wore royal robes, smiled at cameras, and spoke strong words in council meetings. But at night she looked out of her window into the stars and asked herself one question: what does it all mean? Her mother, the Empress, believed strength was everything. We rule because we are strong. Weakness is a disease, and mercy is a lie. Rayla nodded during lessons, but her heart sometimes disagreed. One day, the Silver Palace prepared for a great event. A new system had been conquered, 6 planets, 2 moons, and a small sun all now belonged to the Empire. A celebration was planned. Ships from across the galaxy came with gifts. Dancers performed. Fireworks exploded across the sky. Rayla stood on the upper balcony beside her mother. Her silver cape moved in the wind, and her golden crown sparkled under the twin suns. She watched with calm pride as another world joined their rule. But then, it happened. An alarm rang out. Far above, a small black dot appeared in the red sky. At first, no one paid attention. But the dot grew larger and faster. A damaged shuttle, covered in burn marks, was falling from orbit. It spun wildly, smoke trailing behind it like a comet. Defense ships moved to intercept, but the shuttle was falling too fast. Rila narrowed her eyes. That shuttle's not one of ours. With a loud roar, the shuttle crashed just outside the palace grounds. Soldiers rushed toward the smoke. Fire crews arrived. People shouted. Rayla, curious, followed behind the guards. They found the wreck half buried in dirt. The door had broken open. Inside were burned bags, cracked panels, and one figure half conscious lying still. A young boy. Thin, dirty, maybe 16 or 17. His skin was pale, his clothes torn. The soldiers pulled him out and checked him for weapons. None. Species, human, one of the officers said in surprise. Human? Rella repeated, confused. From Earth? Yes, Princess, said the officer. Though the planet was lost. Years ago, most humans were taken or destroyed. He's a refugee then, she said, her voice low. A survivor. Rila stared at him. The boy's eyes slowly opened. Even in pain, his gaze was calm. He did not speak. He simply looked at her, not with fear, not with awe, but with quiet strength. Strange, Rella whispered. He doesn't look afraid. The Empress arrived minutes later. Take him to the holding chambers, she ordered. Question him. Find out how he got here. Rila nodded, but she felt something strange in her chest. This human. There was something about him. Later that night, Rila sat in her private chamber. The room was filled with gold, crystals, and soft lights. She could have anything she wanted: music, food, entertainment. But she sat in silence, thinking about the boy. She asked the palace eye for a file on Earth. The screen showed images: forests, oceans, tall cities, blue skies. Then it showed fire. War, ships falling, people screaming. In the end, Earth was silent. The Empire had crushed it easily. And yet, this one boy had escaped, survived. The next day, she visited the medical wing. The human was awake, lying on a simple bed, hooked to machines. He turned his head as she entered. I am Princess Rila of the Varnari Empire, she said. You are on planet Kirel. in my mother's palace. Do you understand? He nodded once. What? Is your name? Miran, he said softly. You're from Earth? He paused, then nodded again. Rila studied him. You came a long way to get here. I didn't plan to, he said, voice quiet. I just ran. Ran from what? He looked at the ceiling. From the ones who thought they owned everything. For a moment, neither spoke. You're not afraid? Rila finally said. I've seen worse, Miran replied. Rila stood in. Silence, unsure what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She didn't know whether to feel insulted or impressed. You're just one human, she said. What can you possibly do now? Miran looked at her again. You rule 1,000 worlds. But maybe you've never seen what real power looks like. Rila frowned, but the words stayed in her mind long after she left. She had been born to rule. But for the first time, she wasn't sure what that really meant. Miran stayed in the medical wing for 4 days. The healers said his body was weak but healing fast. He didn't speak much. He didn't ask for anything. He just watched. Quiet, calm, and alone, the guards watched him closely. Some whispered. He was dangerous. Others thought he was useless. A few joked that humans were only good for running away. But Miran ignored them. He sat by the window, eyes fixed on the red sky, as if searching for something far away. Princess Rila visited again. She told herself it was just curiosity, nothing more. But deep inside, she knew that wasn't the whole truth. She entered the room without her guards. The door closed behind her. Miran turned his head, but didn't rise. You're not very talkative, Rila said, walking closer. Not much to say. Miran replied, You're lucky to be alive. That crash should have killed you. He looked at her, calm as always. Luck didn't save me. I did. Rila raised an eyebrow. You flew that ship? I fixed it. It wasn't mine. She sat on a chair beside his bed. Why were you on it? I escaped from a camp. They were collecting humans for labor. Rila had read about those camps. The Empire used prisoners for mining and construction. Most were never heard from again. You escaped alone? Miran nodded. Why didn't you hide on some quiet planet? Why come here, to the capital? I didn't choose the destination. I just picked the fastest ship and hoped it wouldn't fall apart before it left orbit. Rayla paused. She had met many kinds of people, commanders, rebels, scientists, but none like him. He had no armor, no army, no title. Yet he spoke without fear. You know where you are, don't you? She asked. He nodded. The heart of the Empire. And you're not scared? I've seen fear, he said slowly. It lives in people who think power is everything. She leaned forward. Are you saying you don't believe in power? Miran looked out the window. I believe in strength. But not the kind you were taught. Rila crossed her arms. And what kind is that? The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind that lifts others instead of pushing them down. Silence filled the room. Rayla had no answer. Later that week, the palace prepared for a visit to the moon of Terrell, where a small rebellion had started. The Empress wanted her daughter to handle it as training. Rayla agreed. She saw it as a chance to prove herself and maybe understand things better. Miran was not supposed to come, but one of the advisors suggested using him as a language assistant. The rebels on Terrell used a dialect only some humans still knew. Rila agreed, though part of her wondered if she had done it on purpose. The ship to Terrell was large and fast. Soldiers filled the lower decks. Rila stood near the front window, staring into space. Miran stood nearby, quiet as always. You've been to places like this before? She asked. He nodded. Too many. The rebels are small. My scouts say they're just scared farmers. Miran didn't reply. You think they're dangerous? No, he said. But I think you'll learn something. She frowned. Learn what? That being right doesn't always mean being good. When they landed on Terrell, the scene was worse than expected. The farms were burning. Families hid in broken homes. Children stared with wide, hollow eyes. The soldiers had already started, arresting people, even the old and the weak. Rila walked through the town square with her guards. Miran followed behind. People looked at her with hatred. She had seen this before in conquered lands, but this time, it bothered her more than she expected. One boy, no older than 7, ran toward her with a stick. A soldier raised his weapon to strike him down. "No!" Miran shouted, stepping forward. He grabbed the soldier's arm just in time. The strike missed. The soldier spun around angrily, ready to hit Miran, but stopped when he saw Rila's face. "Leave him," Rila said firmly. The soldier backed away. The boy ran off. "You disobeyed a direct order," she said to Miran later, in private. "I saved a life," he answered simply. Rela stared at him. She had never seen anyone like him, someone who could challenge a royal command without shouting, without weapons, just by standing still and speaking with honesty. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked outside alone, into the dark fields of Terrell. The stars above looked the same as always. But the ground beneath her feet felt different. It felt real. Miran joined her. He didn't ask permission. "You were born in this empire," he said, "trained to believe strength is control. But control breaks things. Leadership builds." "You think I can't lead?" she asked. "I think you're just beginning to understand what leading means." Rila looked at the night sky. "You lost your planet. Your people are scattered. How do you still speak like this?" "Because we learned something in that loss," he said. "We learned that true power isn't in ships or armies. It's in choices." She turned to him. "And what choice would you make if you were me?" "Listen," he said, not just with ears, but with heart." Rila looked at him for a long time. For the first time in her life, someone had made her wonder if there was a better way than the one she had been taught. The moon of Terrell was quiet now, but the silence felt heavy. Smoke still rose from burned homes. Soldiers patrolled the streets, but the people kept their eyes low and their mouths shut. Princess Rila had handled the situation as expected. She arrested the local leaders and calmed the soldiers. Her report to the Empress was short. Order restored. Rebellion contained. But deep inside, Rila knew things weren't truly fixed. She had seen the fear in the people's eyes. She had watched the boy with the stick and how Miran stepped in to protect him. Those images stayed in her mind. Back on the ship, heading toward the next destination, Rila sat alone in the command room. She stared at a map of the empire. So many worlds. So many people. She used to feel proud of how large the empire was. But now she only wondered, were they all truly loyal? Or just afraid? Miran entered the room quietly. He had been assigned as her translator and assistant for the next few missions. The officers didn't trust him, but they followed Rila's orders. "You're quiet," he said. She didn't look up, thinking. "About the boy?" She nodded. "I stopped the soldier. But only because you acted first. You saw what was right. That's what matters." "I should have seen it earlier." Miran stepped closer. "Most rulers think strength is never showing doubt. But strength is also being able to change." Rila finally looked at him. "Do you believe a system like this can change?" "I believe one person can light a spark. The question is, what do they do after the fire starts?" Their next mission was on the mining moon called Velra 9. It was rich in metals, and the Empire had used its workers for years. But now production was down, and reports of sabotage were coming in. Rila landed with a group of soldiers and engineers. The governor of the moon greeted her with a smile too wide and eyes too nervous. "Princess Rila, what an honor. Please come. We've had a few issues. Nothing you can't fix." Rila followed him through the mining center. The air was thick with dust. Machines roared in the background. Workers moved like shadows, tired and silent. How are the workers treated? She asked suddenly. The governor blinked. Well, we give them food, rest hours, even entertainment. Miran, walking behind, whispered, "Ask them, not him." Rila nodded slowly. "Bring me to the housing areas," she ordered. The governor hesitated, then obeyed. The living quarters were small and gray. Families lived in metal boxes. Children slept beside machines. An old woman coughed in the corner. No one smiled. No one greeted them. "These people are afraid," Miran said softly. Rayla walked slowly through the area. A small girl, no older than 5, tugged her sleeve. Her hands were dirty. Her eyes wide. "Are you here to take us away?" the girl asked. Rayla knelt down. "No, why would I?" "Because Papa said if we don't dig faster, the Sky Lady will come and make us disappear." Rayla stood up in silence. She said nothing to the governor as they walked back to the ship. That night, in her private quarters, Rayla sat at her desk. Her report was open, but blank. She couldn't write the words, "All is well," again. She looked at Miran. "You were right. They're scared of me. Not because I've done something terrible, but because they believe I will." Miran nodded. "That's how fear works. It spreads." She rubbed her temples. "This is the way the Empire has worked for centuries." "And is it working now?" She looked at him. "You want me to break it all?" "No," he said. "I want you to change it." "How?" "One small choice at a time." The next morning, Rayla did something unexpected. She ordered all arrested workers to be released. She removed the governor from command and placed one of the worker leaders in charge of operations, someone who had once been jailed for asking for better conditions. The soldiers were confused. The advisors were nervous. The workers were shocked. "You're giving power to rebels." One officer whispered, "I'm giving power to someone who understands the people." Rayla answered. She added extra supplies to the mines and gave new orders. No more forced overtime, no more punishment drills. Workers would be heard, not ignored. Back on the ship as they left Velron 9, Rayla looked at the stars. She felt nervous, but also proud. For the first time, she had acted not out of fear or tradition, but out of belief. "Do you think this will make a difference?" she asked Miran. "Yes," he said. "Not everywhere, not at once, but it will begin." A message arrived from her mother, the Empress. It was short and cold. "Your reports show weakness. The Empire does not reward kindness. Return home at once." Rayla stared at the screen, her face calm. "She knows," Miran said. "She's watching," Rayla replied. "And she won't like what she sees. But the people will." That night, a message arrived from the mining moon. A young boy had drawn a picture of a princess standing with workers, not above them. He called her the Sky Lady who listens. Rayla smiled. Sparks had started. Now the fire was coming. The return to Kirel was not filled with ceremony. There were no parades or smiling crowds. Only silence. The Empress had called her daughter back quickly. The reason was clear. Rayla's actions on Terrell and Velron 9 had reached the heart of the Empire. The High Council was uneasy. The Empress was furious. As Rayla's ship landed on the palace platform, rows of soldiers waited. Not to welcome her, but to remind her who was in control. Miran walked beside her. He didn't speak, but his presence gave her strength. The palace halls felt colder than before. The red carpets, the gold walls, even the glowing lights seemed less grand. Rayla noticed something she had never seen before: fear. Not in others, but in herself. In the royal chamber, the Empress stood tall. Her silver robe shimmered like blades. Her voice was calm but sharp. "You acted without permission. You changed laws that were never yours to touch. You replaced loyal officers with criminals. You have embarrassed this house." Rayla stood straight. I did what was right. What is right? The Empress asked coldly. What you feel in your heart. That is weakness. Feelings change, but order is eternal. The people are not machines, Rilla replied. They need more than just commands. They need to be heard. They need to obey, the Empress snapped. Silence filled the chamber. The council watched with still eyes. No one spoke for Rilla, not one. The Empress stepped closer. You were trained to lead, not to follow the whispers of a human refugee. Miran stood behind the guards, watching. His face didn't move, but his eyes never left Rilla. I am still your daughter, Rilla said. But I cannot lead a system built on fear. Then you are no daughter of mine, the Empress said coldly. That night, Rilla was not allowed back into her royal rooms. She was taken to a side tower, locked behind strong metal doors. Her guards were doubled. Her commands were ignored. She had been cut off from power, from her title, from her voice. Miran was placed under watch. He was no longer a guest, but a prisoner. The Empire had decided. Silence them both before they inspired others. Days passed. Rilla stared out of her small window. From here, she could only see a part of the city. Lights blinked below. Ships moved quietly in the sky. She thought of Terrell, of Velrun 9, of the boy who called her the Sky Lady Who Listens. Had she failed them? One night, a small sound came from the wall. A hidden speaker. A voice crackled through. Princess. It's me, Turin, former palace guard. You helped my brother on Terrell. I owe you. There are others who believe in what you're doing. We will act soon. Be ready. The speaker went silent. Rilla felt her heart beat faster. She was not alone. In the lower levels of the palace, Miran sat in a dark cell. His hands were bound, and guards stood outside the gate. Yet he was calm. He had seen prisons before. This one was cleaner, but still just another cage. A guard stepped in. The Empress has ordered your removal. You will be sent off-world tomorrow. No one will know where. You will disappear. Miran nodded. Maybe, but ideas don't disappear so easily, the guard frowned. You're just a human. You're not important. Then why are you so afraid of me? Miran asked gently. The guard said nothing. The next morning, the plan began. Turin and 3 loyal guards overrode the control systems. Power flickered in the palace. Alarms rang out, but confusion spread faster than fear. Soldiers didn't know who to follow. Rilla's door slid open. Turin stepped in. We don't have much time, Rilla nodded. Where's Miran? Already being moved. We have to stop them. Down in the transport halls, Miran was being escorted by 4 guards. 2 walked behind him, 2 in front. They moved toward a black ship waiting on the pad. Just as they reached the gate, it exploded. Smoke filled the air. A group of rebels appeared from the side, shouting and firing stun bolts. The guards fell quickly. Rilla ran into the smoke, her cape torn, her eyes burning. She reached Miran and grabbed his arm. Come on. They ran together into a service tunnel. More loyal guards followed behind. Blaster fire echoed through the halls. But Rilla knew these paths better than anyone. She had explored them as a child. They reached an old storage bay. A small ship was hidden behind crates. Miran looked at her. You planned this? No, but I remembered this place. They entered the ship. Turin closed the doors behind them. Launch in now, he said. The engines roared. As the ship broke free from the palace, fighters tried to follow. But dozens of small craft blocked the way. Ships flown by workers, old soldiers, rebels, and citizens who had heard of the Sky Lady Who Listens. The Empire had its fleet, but the people had their voice. Hours later, in a quiet part of space, the ship floated gently. Miran looked out the window. You're not a princess anymore, he said. Rilla nodded. No crown. No palace. Do you regret it? She thought for a moment. No, she said. For the first time, I feel free. Miran smiled. Then now the real work begins. The stars were calm, but inside Rila's heart, a storm was rising. Her small ship drifted quietly in deep space, far from the Empire's control. Tarain sat at the controls. Miran stood near the window, watching the stars. And Rila sat at the bay. Central table, reading reports from rebel signals sent across the galaxy. One message was clear again and again. We heard what you did. We are ready. She had never planned to lead a rebellion. She was trained to command armies, control governments, and protect her mother's throne. But now she had become something else, a symbol of change. Miran entered the room, holding a cup of warm water. He placed it in front of her. You've been awake all night, he said gently. There's too much to think about, she replied. Too many people waiting for answers. Miran sat across from her. You don't need all the answers right now. Just the right path. Rila looked at the screen again. I spent my life learning how to control others. But no one ever taught me how to listen. You're learning now, Miran said. She gave a small smile. You're a strange teacher, Miran. And you're a strong student, he said. Even if you were born in a palace. The ship soon reached a hidden moon, far from any trade routes. It was called Hera 3, once a farming world, now home to a growing group of rebels, workers, old soldiers, even former officers of the Empire who had left quietly. As Rila stepped down from her ship, the people gathered. They whispered her name. They didn't bow, but they looked at her with something more powerful than fear. Hope. An old man stepped forward. We thought all royals were cruel, but you listened. You changed things. So we'll follow you. I don't want to rule over you, Rila said. I want to build something with you. The man smiled. Then you're already different. Days passed. A base was built underground, hidden from the Empire's eyes. Docks, living rooms, meeting halls. People came from across the stars. Every day, more arrived with stories. We escaped the camps. We saw soldiers hurt children. We were tired of being silent. And every time Rila listened, Miran helped translate when needed. He never told people what to do, but his quiet advice helped shape the new movement. He reminded everyone, don't replace one empire with another. Build something better. One day, a boy arrived with burns on his arm. His ship had been attacked by Imperial fighters. He carried a small device. When they opened it, a recording played a warning. To all systems, the traitor Rila has turned. Against the Empire, anyone who supports her will be punished. All who hide her will suffer. She will be found. And she will fall. The voice was her mother's. Rila sat in silence after hearing it. She's not just angry, she said. She's afraid. She sees your strength now, Miran replied. But others will suffer because of me. They suffer already, he said. Now they have a chance to fight back. That night, Rila walked alone outside the base. The stars looked cold and endless. She remembered standing on the palace balcony, high above burning skies. Back then, she believed the Empire was unbreakable. Now, she knew better. Miran joined her, as he always did. You gave them something they've never had, he said. A voice, she whispered. They will follow it. Not because they must, but because they believe in it. She looked at him. What about you? Why do you stay by my side? He smiled softly. Because you listened. 2 days later, they received a message from deep within the Empire, a secret signal from someone inside the Empress's council. There are cracks in the palace. Many no longer trust her. They fear her anger. If you act soon, we may be able to turn whole systems. Rila stared at the message. She's losing control. Miran nodded. The fire you started is spreading. A plan was made. They would not attack the Empire with weapons, not yet. Instead, they would send a message to every world. A truth that could not be stopped. Rila sat in front of a camera. She wore no crown. Her robe was simple. No guards stood behind her. Only me-irin. She spoke from her heart. I was born to rule 1,000 worlds. I believed strength was fear. But I was wrong. True power is not control, it is choice. I walked among the people. I listened to their pain. And I saw what the empire had become. If you are afraid, know this, you are not alone. If you are ready, join us not to destroy, but to rebuild. Together. The message spread like light across the stars. Within hours, whole colonies answered. Some shut down imperial offices. Others removed their governors. Ships were repainted with the new symbol of peace, a star with open hands. The Empress responded. With firebombing stations, arresting leaders, sending threats. But even in the darkness, the light did not die. Rila and her team watched as the map changed. System by system. Moon by moon. Her mother's empire was beginning to crack. And all of it started because she chose to listen. Because Moran just won. Human Refugee had reminded her of a forgotten truth. In the command room. The stars shone bright through the window. We lit the fire, Miran said. Now we must protect it. Rila nodded. The flames of truth won't go out. Not this time. The stars no longer belonged to the Empire alone. From one end of the galaxy to the other, changes were happening. Governors stepped down. Factories opened their gates. Workers who once feared the Empress now wore simple badges, small silver. Stars with open hands, the symbol of a new beginning. At the heart of it all stood Rila. She no longer wore her crown. She didn't sit on a throne. Her command ship, named Dawnlight, had no royal banners, only clean white walls and calm voices. But everywhere she went, people greeted her with respect, not forced, but real. They called her leader, sister, or sometimes simply Rila. She liked that best. Inside the command room of Dawnlight, Rayla watched messages come in from dozens of systems. System Tenra declares loyalty to the United Worlds. Miners on Lucer 5 have removed the Imperial agents peacefully. Refugees rescued from transport ship in Sector 4. Every message brought new hope, but also new responsibility. This is growing faster than we expected, said Taran, her security chief. We have no choice. Rella replied. The people are moving with or without us. We must guide them, not rule them. Miran stood near the window. His voice, as always, was calm. You didn't ask to lead a rebellion, but you did what no one else dared. You changed the story. Rayla looked at him, and now we have to finish it. In secret corners of the galaxy, the Empress gathered her forces. She refused to speak Rayla's name. She called her the traitor, the broken branch, the lost voice. She sent ships to quiet the rising movement. She tried to block messages, close trade, and scare the weak. But something had changed. Whole fleets refused to attack. Officers turned off their weapons. Some even switched sides, sending their ships to Rayla's alliance. The Empress grew angrier. She wants to silence us, Rayla told her council. But we will answer with truth, not with fear but with unity. A summit was called. On the peaceful world of Vion, leaders from over 60 planets gathered. They were former rebels, teachers, farmers, doctors, even ex-soldiers. They met in a wide-open hall with no gold, no guards, and no weapons. Rayla stood in the center. We are not building a new empire, she said. We are building a home where all voices matter, where peace is not weakness and kindness is not shame. Some of the older leaders were unsure. What if war returns? One asked. What if the Empress attacks again? Then we protect ourselves, Rayla answered. But we will not become what we were. The council voted. The result was clear. The United Systems of Free Worlds was born, and Rayla, chosen by all, became its first speaker of unity. In the days that followed, Rayla visited many of the new member worlds. Her favorite trip was to a small farming moon where families lived in quiet homes and children played under twin suns. There, she saw something that warmed her heart. A group of children ran to her, laughing. They held a small paper flag with the open hand star. One girl smiled up at her and said, "My papa says you're the reason we sleep safely now." Rila knelt beside her. "No," she said gently. "Your papa is the reason. I just listened." Miran stayed close, but never asked for attention. People respected him too. They knew the quiet human had helped light the spark. Many called him the voice in the shadow. One night, he and Rila sat together on a balcony, watching the stars. "You've done something no one thought possible," he said. "I didn't do it alone," Rila replied. He smiled. "That's what makes it powerful." She looked at him. "You could lead if you wanted." "I'm not made for speeches," he said with a grin. "But I'll always stand beside someone who leads with heart." Then came the message that shook them all. A group of former high officials from the Empire had taken control of the Central Fleet. They removed the Empress from command. She had disappeared, fled, most likely. No one knew where. The message was short. "The Varnari Empire is no more. We seek peace. We ask to join the United Systems." There was silence in the council room. Rel stood slowly. "We will not answer with revenge. We will answer with the same mercy we asked for." And they did. Weeks later, a large gathering took place on the neutral planet of Nira. Leaders and citizens from every system came to witness history. Relay stood on a wide platform. Not above the people, but among them. She gave her final speech as the Speaker of Unity's first term ended. "I was born to rule 1,000 worlds, but power without purpose is empty. One day, I met a stranger who showed me that strength can be quiet, and leadership can begin with listening. We built this together, and together we will protect it." The crowd rose with cheers, not out of fear, but out of love. That evening, as the sun set, Miran walked with Rila through the tall trees of Nira. "You've changed everything," he said softly. "No," she replied. "We did." He looked at her. "What now?" Rila smiled. "Now we teach others how to lead, not with crowns, but with courage." Years had passed since the fall of the Varnari Empire. The galaxy had changed. No longer ruled by fear, the stars now belonged to the people. The united systems of free worlds had grown strong, built not with weapons, but with trust, cooperation, and understanding. And at the center of this change stood two people. One who was born to command, and one who never wanted to lead, but changed everything. Rila and Miran. Rila stood on the balcony of a learning center on Vesta Prime, a planet once ruled by cruel governors, now home to peace. Below her, students trained not just in science and trade, but in ethics, diplomacy, and justice. The Academy of Peace and Voice, they called it. Here, young minds from hundreds of worlds came to study leadership. Not through control, but through service. Miran walked beside her, carrying a small datapad. He was no longer just the quiet human. He was a teacher, now one of the most respected voices in the systems. And yet he had never asked for a title. He still wore simple clothes, preferred silence over praise, and always sat at the back of large meetings. But everyone knew Miran's wisdom shaped this new world just as much as Rila's courage. "Your class is waiting," he said with a smile. Rila nodded. "Let's not keep them waiting." They walked down to a large hall filled with students, Varnari, human, Talari, even species once called enemies. All sat side by side, united by learning. Rila stepped forward. "Before I speak," she said, "you will hear from the one who taught me what leadership truly means." She stepped aside. Miran looked at the crowd. His voice was calm. "I was once a refugee. I had nothing. No home, no ship, no plan. I survived because I had to. But then I met someone born into power. Someone raised in a world where everything was about control. He glanced at Rila, and she listened. The room was silent. That was the beginning of something new. Not just for her, but for all of us. You are here because the future needs leaders who listen first and act second. He stepped back. The students applauded, not loudly, but with respect. Later that evening, Rayla and Miran sat under the stars. The night air on Vesta Prime was warm and quiet. Fireflies danced across the trees. It still amazes me, Rayla said, how far we've come. I remember when you first doubted everything, Miran replied. I still do sometimes, she admitted. But doubt is useful. It keeps me honest. You were always honest, he said. Even when you didn't know the truth. Yet, she looked at him. Do you ever miss Earth? Miran paused. Every day. But Earth is gone. What I don't miss is fear. They sat in silence, looking up at the stars. Each one, a memory, a journey. A home dot across the galaxy. The old empire's remains had been transformed. Some planets rebuilt, some remained quiet. A few still clung to the past, but change, slow as it was, had begun even there. The Empress was never found. Some said she escaped to a hidden world. Others believed she was taken by her own guards. But Rila never searched for her. I'm not chasing ghosts. She once said, I'm building futures. On the 10th anniversary of the United Systems, a great gathering was held. Ships from every world arrived. Celebrations filled the skies. Music from many cultures blended into one song of hope. During the ceremony, a statue was revealed in the central plaza on Nira. It was not a statue of a queen or a warrior. It showed two figures standing side by side, hands open. One wore a long coat, head high. The other stood simply, hands at his sides, looking forward. Rila and Miran. The people called it, the leaders who listened. That night, Rila walked alone for a while. She visited the quiet garden near the plaza, where small lights lit the path. Miran found her there. You slipped away again, he said. I needed to think. About what? About how strange life is, she said with a soft laugh. I was trained to conquer, but I ended up freeing myself instead. You freed all of us, he said. Rila turned toward him. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your ship hadn't crashed near the palace? All the time, he said. And what do you think? He smiled. I think fate chose the right moment. They stood in silence for a moment longer. Then Rila spoke again. There's one thing I never told you. What's that? The day I saw you take that hit for the boy on Terrell, I knew then you had more courage than all my generals combined. Miran looked at her. And you had more heart then. Your crown ever allowed you to show. They both smiled. Later that night, back inside her room, Rila opened an old journal she once wrote in as a child. The first page had a question she used to ask herself again and again. What does it all mean? Now she picked up a pen and answered it. It means listening, learning, and choosing the kind of leader the stars need. It means being more than what you were born to be. She closed the book and looked out at the night sky. The galaxy was vast, still full of challenges, still full of work. But for the first time, it felt like a home worth protecting, because a girl born to rule had chosen instead to lead. And a boy with no power had shown her what true strength really meant.